student transfer panel that's part of our summer 2026 transfer bootcamp. I just mentioned that this is one of my favorite things and parts of this event because you get to hear from students who have successfully transferred and are partway through their experience at a university, or those who have been accepted somewhere and are about to start. And so we have a wonderful panel. I was trying to think of another word for panel, but we have a wonderful panel of students here, and I am going to get started by asking all of you to introduce yourself, tell us where you have transferred or are transferring to, and then what you're majoring in. So we'll just start right here.
My name's Samantha, and I am majoring in computer science, and I have a minor in data analytics. I'm currently transferring to Texas State in the fall, this fall.
Hey, I'm Marcos. I've been at UT since fall 2024, so I've been there for a little bit, but I'm majoring in humanities and pre-medicine.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Nicole. I go to Texas State, majoring in computer science with a minor in applied math, and I transferred in fall of 25, so 2 semesters ago.
Hi, my name is Parker. I just graduated from ACC. I am transferring to Cornell University for the School of Industrial Labor Relations. And
When are you starting?
I'm starting this fall.
Yeah, I see some clapping happening. Let's give a round of applause for these students. Yeah. Okay, so you all had a variety. You mentioned different schools. There's some overlap with schools and similar majors. But can you tell us why you chose the school that you chose? On top of that, tell us if you looked at other schools or applied anywhere else in the process.
Well, the reason I chose Texas State was because there's a Bats to Cats program through ACC, and so I was able to get like scholarships, and it was easy to get my application in. I honestly didn't have to do anything. I just applied, and they were like, "You're in," and it was cool. I didn't really look at other schools because I knew it was gonna be expensive, but the scholarships and just like the easy process to get into Texas State made me feel like a little bit better.
Yeah, so I just looked at UT because one, I lived in Austin when I applied, and then I looked at the other schools to verify that no one else had the humanities program that I was wanting that I'm in now. So I applied to UT only. So it worked out so far.
Texas State chose me. I applied to UT and Texas State. I was trying to stay in the Austin area, and so from all the schools in the area, those were my 2 that I applied to. And then I did not get into UT, and I went to Texas State.
I applied to a couple of different schools. I applied to Yale, got waitlisted. Then Cornell was just was I would. It was free, so I decided to. And then after I submitted my application, I really looked into what exactly I was applying to, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually perfect." And then I got in. I'm still waiting to hear back from UT, but I got a full ride with Cornell, so I don't think they could beat that. So, what was the question? That was it.
Yeah. London, you just got here. Thank you for joining
Right.
us today. Will you introduce yourself? Tell us what school you're attending, what you're majoring in, and then why you chose that school.
Yeah, sorry for being late. My name is Lennon Chamberlain. I'm a senior at UT Austin right now. I study economics with finance, and then and then what schools I applied to? I applied pretty broadly because I didn't think that anywhere would really accept me. But I applied to UT Dallas, Texas A&M, and Texas State. So, and I chose UT.
Ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You made a comment. You said, I didn't think anybody would accept me.
Yeah.
That wasn't the question, but yes, you know what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Why
No,
do you think that?
I don't know. I think that like growing up, I had like this perception about like who I was and like where my family came from, and I was like, neither of my parents went to college, and um, I think you just like you develop this mindset about yourself early on, and so it took a lot of like family and friends like surrounding me to push me and be like, no, you can be whatever you want to be, and you can go wherever you want to go. You just have to like grow into that person. And so I think that like ACC really supported me in that way and helped me get to that place. But I definitely was doubtful, even if those around me weren't.
I'm going to keep following up with this because it's such a great story. How do you feel now? Now that you've been at UT a while, and I know you're doing great things there.
Yeah, I definitely feel differently. There's like once you get to UT, you're like, oh, it's like there's a lot of people at UT. There's a lot of people who are really smart, but um, like everybody can fit in there as long as you work hard and you are, academically motivated to, like the best of your ability and you try really hard. And so I think that like I didn't realize how much like hard work will carry you once you get to a place like that. So yeah. Yeah.
Anyone want to add anything else? I saw y'all all.
I feel like
I saw
you should add
everybody nod when you made that
getting
point.
into Cornell.
Well, yeah, I didn't think I was gonna get into Cornell. Like I said, I just kind of applied because it was free. But what really pushed me was like, the people who were surrounding me, especially my advisor at the time, Janet, was our honors advisor, and she was like, "Don't have tunnel vision for just UT. There's so many great students that get rejected from UT, and then they get accepted to Yale or like any other prestigious school, and so just." Put your name out there, submit the application. You're gonna be writing essays anyways, a couple more wouldn't hurt. And yeah, so I took that advice, I ran with it, and I was like, the worst thing they could do is tell me no. I'm not telling anybody that I'm applying to these schools, like not really. So if I get rejected, I'm the only one that knows. So it doesn't hurt as much.
I think I would also say congratulations for you two, and also you. Those are competitive schools, and that is really really cool accomplishment. But we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and I have found at Texas State that it's a wonderful school. It's a good time, and so definitely push yourself hard to accomplish those things that you want to accomplish. But wherever you end up, like you're gonna have wonderful life experiences if that's what you're seeking out. So.
I don't know. UT, kind of like what London said, like, I'm the first one in my family to go to an actual college that I don't know. And like on the Applied Texas form where they're like, are you first generation? Are you Mexican? Are you this and that? Like, I had to check all the boxes for all of those, which was kind of strange because it was like, how much of an outlier are you to apply to college? And so I was like, okay, yes, I'm a veteran. Yes, I'm a dad. Yes, I'm 30. And I was like, God dang. Like, I was like, damn. like, I don't know. So it was very strange. And then like I said, like I only applied to UT. Like that was my one and only option that I chose for myself. I honestly didn't really consult anyone. Like I probably should have. But but I mean, again, it worked out. Renee helped me actually with my application and stuff like that. Like the very last minute, I was like, "Hey, can you look at my essay?" And she was like, "Wow, you do need to work on your essay for various reasons."
Our team is very honest. We want you to submit the best application you can. And so if it needs work, all of our transfer specialists and all members of our team will tell you.
Yeah, so she told me I sounded too mean on my application, on my essay and stuff like that. So it worked. Whatever I did to change it, whatever advice she gave me, it worked. But then once you get into UT, it's very strange. Like it's not like ACC where everyone's kind of like all struggling the same way. Like everyone's like, damn, I got to go to my shift at Sonic. Like, and then like your classmates like, yeah, me too at Chipotle. At UT, it's like, hey man, I got to go home to my kid. And the 18-year-old's like, really, I'm flying on a helicopter to where so and so. And it's like, we're not in the same tax bracket. That that's cool. Like it's just everyone is the wealth is there on campus. Like you can really feel it, which is very strange to me, because I just wake up and I go in my pajamas and I'm like, oh, okay, like everyone's wearing their nice clothes. But Yeah, that's just the weird part about UT, but again, it's the school, so not to badmouth it because I'm obviously there. They might be watching me, so I want to graduate, but still, just being honest about everything.
Um, I really didn't apply anywhere else because I love this area. I didn't want to leave, and then I knew how competitive UT's computer science program is. Like they only allow applications in the fall, so they don't even let you like transfer in on the spring semester. So it's really competitive. I probably should have tried, but just the scholarships and the seamless transfer to Texas State was just really good because I basically got an associate's of computer science and it completely transferred over to Texas State and I'm basically a junior now and I have like 2 more years. So I'm happy with my choice, but
It's a great choice. It's a wonderful choice. All of you have made wonderful choices. You've touched on a few things in some of your answers, which was about the support, the resources, and who kind of helped you through this process. So, what are some of the other resources or services or programs at ACC that you all, utilized as you were progressing through ACC and during that transfer process?
I would say I really utilize like the tutorials, tutoring and stuff. I would log in sometimes and I'd need to talk to somebody like right then and there. And most of the time there was usually someone online or I would just schedule something. I've always talked to like with my advisor, especially for classes, just to make sure like I was on track with Bats to Cats. I've just I don't know, I've tried to use all the resources at the school because you're kind of like paying for them in your tuition, so you might as well just look into everything.
For me, yeah, I did some of the tutoring online. Um, I did that, and then the transfer services, of course, I had help with that. My regular like academic advising, I had help with that, and Phi Theta Kappa. I don't know if y'all got that. Yeah, right. That's what's called. Yeah, it's been a while. Sorry, but I got that added onto my deal. But honestly, like I was working and taking care of that one right there, so it was a lot on my plate. So really, it was just academic help. I really wanted more than anything else. Just
Yeah, definitely transfer services. Y'all are all here, so you know that. Meet with them and go to all the events because you're gonna keep hearing new things. Like they're very inventive with their stuff that they provide. And then there's also this thing. Is the Canva thing still? Or I'm sorry, a Blackboard still. Transfer 101 on Blackboard. Definitely sign up for that. For advising, I know that you can just go in and like meet with one. I would say if possible, I don't know if people do this, but like don't make a habit of that. Like go to your assigned one that's like designated to you and treat them like a doctor where like you go in at an interval for like preventative care because like you want to like meet with them at like the recommended, I think it's like once a semester, and that way like you can just make sure that you're on track and that you're not missing things. And for me, like I wanted to take some extra classes that weren't aligned with my degree, and so they were able to enable that and still keep me on track. um if you want to have a good time here, or alternatively, if you're trying to apply to competitive schools, get involved, join clubs, go to events. Kind of like he was saying, there's a different population here than there is at these big universities because there's a lot of younger folks there, and some of you guys are young, but there's just like a huge amount of diversity here, and like, you should really take advantage of that. And so do things and experience things, and enjoy your time here, and then you'll have stuff to put on your resume, your yeah, and bring with you to your next place.
Yeah, I am part of the honors program here at ACC. If any of you guys are familiar with it, I hope you are. If you're not, you could talk to me afterwards. But with the honors program, when I first joined, we had like the honors advising, and I got really close with my advisor, and then she ended up encouraging me or more like telling me to apply for like officer positions within the organization that she was the advisor for. And from there, it just really like skyrocketed. Like it changed the trajectory of my whole time here at ACC, and I was able to really feel comfortable using the resources because I kind of knew more people here at ACC. And so I constantly was having advising sessions because every little class, like I would like, overthink it or like want to find a way to take it as honors or whatever it may be. But also using the people around you is probably going to be one of your biggest resources because more often than not, the people around you are going to be wanting to transfer as well. And so you guys are in the same boat. You guys are going to suffer together. I remember one of the like last Fridays before all the transfer applications were due. My friends and I were in the same boat, and we just sat down at the library and we were just passing each other's computers around, reading our essays, and be like, "Oh yeah, this is so good," and they're like, "No, we hate it," and it just like it was a really good bonding experience. But having people there to kind of relate with you really takes the stress off your shoulders, and it doesn't make you feel as crazy because you're like, "Oh no, she's going crazy right now. I'm not that crazy," but you are. So it does help. And then also, like, well, sorry, no, I was saying about joining student orgs. I held a couple of leadership positions here at ACC, and it really helped me develop as a person and as a student. But don't make the mistake of getting these leadership opportunities just so you could put it on your resume. Make sure you're doing something that is meaningful because when it comes down to it, and like for me, I had my interview with Yale and they asked me about those things. I was able to actually talk about my experiences from my heart. Like I genuinely loved being a president, a VP, an ambassador. And so I was able to, talk about it genuinely and not like talk about it on like surface level. And I think it really helped me stand out in my process of transferring.
Yeah, I definitely second a lot of what was already said. In terms of like actual ACC resources, I used the transfer services probably a little bit less than I like should have. I don't think I was like as opportunistic with what was provided to me. So I definitely recommend them. But I did like the essay reviews. That was really helpful because I was like writing one of the prompts and the person who read my essays was like, "Oh, actually I think that what you're writing is more attuned to this prompt instead." And so just like kind of helped me like think through like really what's being asked of me in the essays. And then beyond that, I spoke to my advisor probably once a semester also. Um, but it was just over email. And so I wish I really like scheduled an appointment and became more like close with my advisor for the exact reasons that Nicole mentioned. Um, but yeah, like I emailed my advisor one semester and she was like, "Dude, you gotta transfer this, like you gotta transfer now." And so they're just like really helpful at, you know, looking at what your goal is and then helping you find a way to like get there. So that was helpful. And then I was involved with Phi Theta Kappa as well, which I think was probably the most impactful thing that helped me. But I don't think that like Phi Theta Kappa necessarily has to be like that thing for you. I think that though, like if you want to transfer, the schools that you're applying to are going to look to see like how is this student like using their resources that are provided to them, and are they like making the most of the specific situation that they're in. And so for me, like getting into Phi Theta Kappa, I was like, oh, I really want to become involved with this and like be as servant of a leader as I can on campus and like get involved and take part in leadership positions so that I'm demonstrating to UT that like I really care about my campus community and the broader community as a whole, and that like it's something that I want to be a part of. And I think that that really helps. I think that when you're transferring, they're like, oh yeah, I think this person sounds like they'd be a great shoo-in for our school because like why wouldn't they continue to do that here? So I think Phi Theta Kappa was beneficial for me. I also joined Collegiate DECA, and I thought that was a great community, but it's business oriented, and so I would only really recommend that if you're like kind of going down that path. But yeah, there's definitely orgs that I think you should get involved with if you have the capacity.
I was going to come back to what Parker said about suffering together, right? You have other students that want to transfer and we're suffering through this together. And I was going to say there's some really bright things too in there. There's a lot of support for one another and like cheering each other on when you get on or when you get in. But my next question might bring up some suffering. So I apologize. So can you all talk about your actual application process? Were there any challenges through that process, whether they were external challenges, internal challenges? Because these are all students that want to learn from you and not make any mistakes that you made.
This will probably be pretty quick. The Bats to Cats program made it like really easy, like kind of dumb easy, but I loved it. It was great. Like only took me like a couple weeks and I heard back and it was good to go. They sent over my transcripts easy, everything. Like they were just up to date and on it.
Mine was a little bit more complicated. So, well, one, like, I didn't feel like I was ready to apply to UT until my academic advisor was like, dude, you can't take any more classes. You're at your transfer limit. And I was like, ugh, that's a real university, though. I don't know if I'm ready. So I didn't really have a choice, which I mean, it was good. Like, we all kind of are too scared to jump off for that leap of faith until, someone's pointing a gun at us. And my gun was just like, I can't do any more ACC classes. I would have just been wasting time. So I applied to UT. Of course, like my essay was a problem. I had to fix it, which I did. I fixed it. And then they were going through some technical changes at the time with their admittance process. I want to say that they fixed it by now, but I don't want to lie to anyone because I have no idea. I only applied 2 years ago, so I don't know what the deal is. But I applied to UT. I submitted all my stuff. ACC sent the transcripts in, yada yada yada, and they were like, our acceptance date or the day like we notify your acceptance or not is like June something, like June 15th, we'll say. Yeah, June 15th this day. And June 15th came and went, and then I went on the website and they were like June 30-ish. Like it was very vague. I don't know what the deal of it was. And I was working and then I was like, you know what? I got to get out of town. All I could think about was like the yes or no. It was like killing me. So I drove to Big Ben last second. Like I did like a round trip kind of deal. And of course there's no signal. So by the time like June 30th was there, like I still haven't heard back. So I turned around and I just called UT and I was like, hey guys, it's kind of past June 30th. Is this a yes or a no? And they're like, oh, okay. So your application didn't go through. There is a back end error. And it wasn't something that I would have seen because for me, it just said processing. And so I was like, is this a no then? And they were like, no. We'll let you know. We'll send you an email, yada, yada, yada. Finally, I got the email. It said yes. I had to accept or decline by June 30th, which of course had already passed. So I said yes, of course. But that was a big issue. There was nothing on like ACC's end or my end. It was just like the UT technical end. And like, of course, like when you call these kind of numbers, they're always like the voicemail is always like, do not ask us about your application status. Please do not ask us about your application status. So when I called them, I was like, yeah, I'm asking about my application status. What's the deal? And it was actually relevant. Like they were like, okay, this is fair. You do need to ask about it. But like, don't be afraid to bother them. Like you may feel like you're wasting their time, but also they're kind of getting paid for that. So like you can waste their time a little bit. But yeah, that was my experience.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, so going into the whole transfer thing, I was like dead set on UT. My brother went to UT, and so I was like pretty emotionally attached to it. Um, I was super lucky because I talked to transfer services, and Renee was like, "Hey, dude, that's a super competitive program. You should have a backup." And so, then ended up going through the whole process of like, "Oh, what is my plan B?" And like looking at all the schools in the area and like actually truly thinking about it. Um, and then I did like tours and looked at the financial aid for all the schools and did all that stuff. Um, after that, working on the applications, I think I started in fall. Is it due in the spring for the fall? Yeah, then I probably started in, like, September. It's a hard thing to make yourself do, but, like, start as soon as possible because, like, you have to do all this reflection and, like, writing and, like, you have to meet with people like transfer services and maybe if you have an extended resume, that you need to submit, you need to meet with, career and life design and things like that. So, that was what I did, but I would definitely recommend start a little earlier, maybe in the early summer for that window. And then after that, like kind of like he was saying, just got all of the application stuff in. Oh, and then immediately after that, you're gonna be burnt out, but apply for scholarships and financial aid. No joke, you don't want to spend your first semester like with loans because you like missed the scholarship window, which is super close to the transfer application window. So, anyways, I did all that and then was waiting in limbo. I was actually on a program for a language thing in Brazil, like checking. I'm like in Brazil, checking my phone every day, waiting to see what UT had to say. But I got the rejection, and then because I had prepared everything, I was able to accept my admission to Texas State and um, register for classes as soon as you get that acceptance because transfer students are like already at a disadvantage that semester because the class window opens earlier for other students, or usually, but definitely at Texas State, maybe at the other ones. So I registered for classes, and then when I got back, went to orientation. So yeah.
Um, the transfer process is a touchy subject for me. I went through it a lot. It was so much back and forth of me hating everything that I wrote and then like not knowing what to write about. But then I really like that I'm on this panel because what really helped me like do the finishing touches on my essay was coming to an event like this. It was the top two to top tier transfer panel, and there were students who were currently at Yale and at UT, and they gave some really like solid advice of like what to put in on your essay, which was like looking at what classes specifically you want to take, researching the professors that you would take, and implementing that into your essays so that the school kind of like knows that you're serious about this. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. And so I went back, scrapped my whole like conclusion, went back and like fixed it, sent it to Renee and like everybody I knew who was in academia and was just like, is this good? And then at some point it just came down to like, if I like it, like just submit it because there was so many like just little flaws that I was like, I don't want to fix it, but like I feel like this, like if I fix it, it's gonna take away my voice, and so it was just coming down to like the small things within my essay if I wanted to keep or like leave it. That's like some of the problems I was just like hyper fixated on. But yeah, could you repeat the question? I think I got it, but I don't know.
Were there other challenges through this process? And I know you're still waiting on some decisions. Like, are there stressors or
Oh yeah, yeah. Just yeah. The whole process was stressful. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But like I said earlier, like having the support system around you does help tremendously, and also like give your eyes a break when you're looking at your essays because you could read it over and over and over again, and then that last time you read it, it's gonna still sound the same, and you might still hate it. But if you close your laptop, look back at it in like 2 weeks or so, it might be the best essay you've ever written. So, you know, have some grace with yourself, give it some time. Start early, but I mean, I started early and then I ended up changing my essay completely the couple days before that. So, I mean, I think it just depends on you, but everybody's path is different. Just be patient.
Yeah, I especially agree with the point of like doing research on the school that you're interested or schools you're interested in transferring to and like writing about what you want to do there. I also did that and I felt like it allowed me to like connect with schools and like get excited too. Like even if UT wasn't the option, like there was cool stuff that I wanted to do at A&M. But yeah, I was definitely super stressed during the transfer process. I felt like once applications were sent, like every day was like a stressor. Like, am I going to get an admission today? Like, am I not? So I would check it like earlier once I had just submitted. I didn't check it, and then as like the June 15th deadline for UT and like A&M and stuff came through, or was coming up, I started checking it at least once a day. And then the week of like June 15th, I was checking it like probably once an hour. I was like, it's going to come out. And it didn't even come out until like after hours, June 15th. So I don't know why I was like so frantic to wait for this decision. Um, but yeah, like there was a lot of just like mental anguish, like waiting for a decision. Um, I Although I felt like through the process, I was like, "Oh, I really believe now in holistic admission." Because before applying to UT, I think I was like, "No, you have to have a perfect SAT score and a perfect GPA and like all this stuff." And when I was applying to UT, I think part of the reason why I doubted myself so much is because my GPA wasn't like it wasn't very impressive. I think I finished ACC with like a 3.58 or something like that by the time I transferred. And so I was really stressing about like the classes that I took and didn't do well in. And I think it came down to like me putting in work in other areas of my application that made up for like the lack of the perfect GPA. Like being really involved with Phi Theta Kappa and Collegiate DECA, like I submitted a resume that I think was like probably like the better part of my application. Like it showcased, part of the reason why my GPA wasn't perfect is because I was so involved in other things. And so I think that um I definitely recommend like investing your time in areas that you think can benefit you if you feel like there's like a sticking point in your application. Like essays are a great way to do that. I think that like improving your resume is a great way to do that. And just showing like the person that you are. Um, so yeah, I think the most challenging aspects for me were like the writing. I'm a terrible writer. The like mental, like getting over like me thinking that I wouldn't get into whatever schools I applied to, and then um it's just like getting down to doing the work. So yeah, you have to have a good group around you. I think need to have a good support network. And I think there's a lot of ways you can find it on campus for sure.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to add on to one more thing London reminded me of. Are there any veterans in here? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so like I don't know if y'all noticed, but there's not as much stuff that we can put on our application. Like we don't have SAT scores or ACT. Yeah, I see. I don't even know. Like it really feels like it's our essay, our resume, and I mean, student organizations are a thing, but like I would only take classes when I was overseas. So I don't think it was Renee, but I remember someone at ACC was like, "You don't have any student org stuff on here," and I was like, "Yeah, I was involved with another org, the Army," and like I couldn't be a treasurer for whatever group, and somebody was like, I don't know about that," and I was like, I just need a essay check. Like, but like it feels like there's less, like we don't have as much wiggle room for that kind of stuff. But also, like if you're a veteran, you're kind of a veteran. Like I don't know, that already adds points on like job applications. So I'm assuming it works the same way for college apps. Again, it worked out for me because I'm already in it. But like just something that y'all are aware of. Like it really does come down to like GPA, essay, resume. I don't know if you have a nice smile or something like it's just less stuff. It feels like for me personally.
Did you end up putting your military experience in detail on your academic resume?
Yeah, because that was the only thing I had. Yeah.
So that is something for your academic resume. London, were you going to add something?
I wanted to share. I just realized I remember this. I wanted to share it. I called UT when I was in the process of like writing my transfer application, and I remember getting on the phone with somebody at their business school who answered the phone. And I've come to find out that like everybody that answers those phones are their fellow students at UT. And I was asking for some transfer advice, and before like even getting to talk to anybody, I wanted to talk to an advisor there, and see if I could get like 30 minutes in front of them just to see like where am I at? What should I be doing differently? And the girl, like before she even let me ask that, was like, "What's your GPA at ACC?" And I said what it was, and she was like, "Oh, you're not going to get in." So she was like, "I wouldn't apply." And she hung up the phone, like the phone hung up. And I remember just like sitting in the kitchen and like crying to my sister and being like, oh, I've spent like 2 years at ACC and I've like worked my butt off in like all these areas of my life. And I just feel like one phone call can like diminish so much of like your confidence and like your ability. And I ended up getting in and I don't know what that girl was thinking. So like
Call her back? Did you call her back and say, "Can I speak to this
I
person?"
should have got her name, dude.
Your
I
your
should
paper showing your
Yeah,
face?
like, I don't know. There sometimes it's your ops that are like the ones that believe in you the most, you know? Maybe she really did believe in me and she's just trying to give me that push. But yeah, that like I'll never forget like that phone call and that feeling of just like kind of like exhaustion, being like, "Oh, I worked so hard," and like it just feels like I'm not going to be happy with wherever I go. And that, of course, none of that is true. But just in the moment, I felt defeated. But like those are the days that you gotta lock in and just keep going because you can do it. Everybody can do it.
Let's put some calls into UT and find out who that was that told you that. This has been so great so far, and I'm running out of time. So we can open it for audience questions, but I'm going to be sneaky right now and ask my last question. And I'm going to make it a two-parter. So I'm getting around the timing rules. For those of you who have not yet started at your new school, tell us one thing you're looking forward to. For those of you who have already been enrolled at your new school, tell us the coolest thing you've done on campus so far. Okay, so two different things. And then what's a piece of advice that you have for the audience here today that will help them through this transfer process?
I would say the thing I'm most excited about with Texas State is their science like program and then all the equipment that they have. Because I'm a real big nerd and I like science and physics and things like that. So I actually got to tour their facility and it was honestly like beautiful. It was really cool and I got to meet a lot of students that were working under like professors and that was one of my goals. What was the second? I would say to just honestly like get involved. There's some stuff that like I did my first year, like the Austin studio tour that I kind of had to do for an assignment, and I go to it like every single year now. I haven't missed a studio tour, and I don't know. I come from like a small town, so it's mainly just like oil field stuff over there. So coming to ACC was like a really big change, and it was just really awesome getting to meet like interesting people who've kind of pushed me to like go out there and do new things. So just get involved, talk to people. Even your professors are really cool. Like if you actually get to know them, go to office hours, and you'll find some pretty cool people.
Coolest thing, piece of advice.
I don't know. It's cool. There's a tower. There's a big tower on campus. No, I don't know. I'm not one to get excited about that kind of stuff.
Have a job at UT.
Oh, okay. So there's a few things I have going on at UT. Like, okay, so they say like the transition process, transfer process, it's not like you transfer in and that's it. It's like continuous. Like I hate to sound like one of those cornball things, but like you're always transferring into the culture and stuff like that. Because it's true. So like this is my second year and this past semester was like the first time I finally felt like I was an actual student at UT and not someone who was an ACC going to some UT classes. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but like so this past semester I got a job with UT actually advising and like mentoring other transfer students who are newly arrived to UT. So I have like my own little, I don't want to say classroom because it was a Zoom call, but like I had my own little group of kids that like that we're just transferring in from different places. Like I say kids, but I have a 50-year-old in there, so I don't know about kids. It's right, but they're like my kids. And then I'm gonna do that again this upcoming semester, like in an actual classroom, where I'll just be mentoring them, kind of talking to them about this kind of stuff. Like, hey, man. It sucks, but you'll get through it. Look at what I had to go through and stuff like that. Um, and then also, I was made the president of a non-traditional student organization. So like we're like the only non-traditional student org on campus. So it's mainly just a bunch of like it's like a retirement home of like people in a group chat, just kind of like those damn kids in my class won't stop asking questions. And it's kind of true because yeah, like a lot of the kids in class are like, what's a tax bracket? And you're just like, oh my God, like come on. But yeah, like it's a group chat and then like there's other student parents. So like I'm always like, hey, I'm trying to like pawn this one off. Like, hey, if you're gonna go here, take this one with you. But it's cool. Like I said, like it felt like a long time before I could really feel like I belong at UT. Maybe it's on purpose, maybe not. It's just UT is so big. Like you're always seeing new faces and like there's always someone riding like a unicycle or something weird on campus and you're just like come on dude just walk like just walk to campus and but yeah UT is just one of those big places that you're always seeing something new or you're always seeing new people and then the classrooms are like this big in the medium end. There's like some of the honors classes I've taken, like they're a lot smaller. But like if you're taking like chemistry, biology, like no joke, it's like 300 people in one lecture hall and everyone's mouth breathing and sneezing at the same time. So like just be prepared for that. But yeah, it took me a while to get used to it. So don't be worried like you're just like why am I not fitting in because that's kind of how it is. Oh, and they charge for everything. Like I know I have the GI Bill paying for my tuition, but like I have to pay for parking. The professors had to pay for parking. So like keep that ACC student ID on you because there's a few parking spots I'll tell y'all about when y'all get in. But yeah, it's cool. Actually, my
Is
favorite.
that why I can't find parking at Rio Grande? Did I
Yeah.
go out there? Okay.
Yeah, Rio Grande, third floor. That's where I'm at. Where it says professors only. I park there. I'm just like, why not? No, actually my favorite part is the classes because there's a lot of cool classes. Like I've taken one where it sounds kind of corny, but role playing. We role played, we didn't dress up, no accents either, but like we role played the Russian Revolution and the Mexican Revolution. We had different objectives. Like there's some people who had to kill the Czar or El Presidente, and then there's like me who had to like stop them and like arrest people and execute them. It was cool. There's some like cool classes because like UT has that kind of money where they can start doing like weird classes. So that's cool. That's my favorite part, honestly. It sounds nerdy, but the classes are cool.
Well, I just wanted to circle back. I think you're talking about the engineering building at Texas State that you went to. They're building a computer science building. Yeah, it was supposed to be done this fall, but I think it's gonna be done probably in the spring. But hey, if you're thinking about doing computer science at Texas State, brand new building, um, there's not like one single coolest thing. When I have tests that make me want to cry, I go down the road and jump in the river. You can't do that here. That's gross. But yeah, it is beautiful down there. You can go hiking and swimming, and so it's really cool natural environment there. And then I also am working. I'm working on campus at Texas State for. I work for a professor grading computer ethics. Computer ethics course, and I took it, and I was just like in love with the concept of applying like ethical stuff to computer science. I didn't even realize I would take that course, and so that's been really eye-opening to like find something in a new place that's like really special to me. Um, Advice. A lot of the transfer process, you like can get really into the logistics, especially if you're like me, where you're like, I made a list and I'm gonna do this logically. But there's a lot of reflection that goes into it and like knowing things about yourself. And so I would say do that now and do it sincerely because it's going to benefit you professionally, it's going to benefit you personally, and you're gonna be able to really speak about what you like and, like, what's important to you, like, going into that, essay writing and all that stuff, and then to take with you in life, so.
So what I'm excited for personally, since I'm moving to like a whole new state, upstate New York, I'm excited for like the weather change. I'm engaged and have two little boys, not actual kids, but fur babies. But they act like kids. And so one of them is a husky, and I'm excited for him to experience that cold weather. And then I'm excited to experience a whole new life with my partner. And academically, I'm excited to. So, had a meeting with like the associate director of Cornell admissions, and it was like the day after I accepted my offer, and he was like, you're in a good place right now. You could take elective after elective, and then we have this thing called advanced electives. And so Cornell has like a school of public policy and then the school of law. And so I'm able to take advanced credits or advanced electives through their graduate like schools. And so I want to go into law school after my bachelor's. And so I could already start taking classes at their law school. And I'm interested in public policy as well. So I could, take classes there. And so I was really looking at like the courses that I'll be able to take. And I'm like already highlighting the ones I want to take. And it's very similar to like the course names in our like ours program. And so I kind of feel like right at home. So I'm just ready to be fully immersed into like the Cornell life and be hopefully a good student and get everything that I need to do done. And then I'm excited for the environment. I've heard that there's like so many waterfalls, and I think that's cool. I like being outside, so I feel I feel fine. Some advice I would say is I don't know. uh, I think the number one advice I always give to like students when I talk to them is just like apply. If you see an opportunity, apply for it. Because like you never know. Like there's a reason why that opportunity came to your screen or like came to you in some way. And so maybe it's the universe telling you like, hey, apply. Because I mean like when I was here at ACC, I went to New York on a full week, all expenses paid, and then they invited me again back this summer, and so I'm going next month. And that was an opportunity that I was just like, yeah, I think I have time to submit that the application. Let me just do it. Did the day of, and I got it. So there's reasons for why there's things that is placed in front of you, and you'll never know what's going to happen unless you go for it.
Definitely. I think the coolest, I just walked the stage a few weeks ago at UT. I'm like done. I have one more class. I have a math class. I have to go Monday to Friday. I just went. It's terrible. It's terrible after you've walked the stage. So let that be a lesson. Um, but I think the coolest memory that I have from being at UT was that my first semester on campus, I joined a service organization, and it allowed me the opportunity to run across the football field at one of our games before the football players ran out. And so the cheerleaders were all out and they were cheering, and I ran across the field, and like the Jets went by, or maybe I'm misremembering that the Jets were there and it just feels like the Jets were there, but like the whole crowd was like cheering, and that was just like really surreal. And I think that like cemented, I was like, oh, I'm a Longhorn, like it's real. So that was cool. And I think if there's like one piece of advice that I could give, it's that I think like no matter what you want to do, whatever, the best way to say this is like I would start with your end goal. I wouldn't start with like I want to transfer to this college. I would be like, I want to go to law school so that I can be a lawyer one day. And if you want to be a lawyer one day, then you need to look at the law schools that are going to allow you to practice law. And then from there, you need to figure out what are the undergraduate colleges that are going to put you into a good law school. And then from there, it's like, what do I need to do while I'm at ACC to get into one of those good schools? So I would start with the end goal that you have. And then there's like so many paths that you can take to get there. And you just have to set yourself up to fit into one of those paths. I'm going to work in New York in a few months, and there's so many ways that I could have gotten there. But just by like having in the back of my mind, like I know that I want to go to New York after college. I just need to figure out how to get there. Allowed me to like take a step back and be like, I need to go to UT or I need to go to this school and I need to study one of these majors. And if I can do all of these things, then it's going to amount to me getting to New York. And so I think start with the end goal and then find the direction that you need to go in to get there.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Oh yeah, let's give a round of applause. We're going to do some audience questions, and earlier I know you raised your hand first, so we'll start here.
Thank you. My question is, a lot of the stuff that I've heard today seems like it equates to creating balance in this journey through education. And I'm just curious, what do you believe that you implemented in your journey that allowed you to create that balance to be where you're at today?
Hello. Okay. I think adding like non-negotiables, if that makes sense. So like, if, for example, I run or I go to the gym, and so like that's my non-negotiable. Like every day, like I'm gonna have to do some type of physical activity, and it kind of keeps me grounded. Like for example, when I go for a run, I'm not on my phone, and then like I run on the Labor like trail, and so I kind of treat that as like my third space. And there's a lot of times when I have the time that I finish up my run and I just kind of like sit there and like look at the view, and it's just like I don't have my music on. I'm just like completely zoned out and like enjoying like the view and stuff. And so it kind of like brings me back to earth a little bit. And like as I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, like yes, I have this assignment, and also have to work on like other things, right? And so I think about it and I'm like, that's only four things. I got it. And so like I would run back home or I finish my workout and I feel like kind of resetted. I mean, that's what works for me. If you're like, able to be like physically active, I mean, I 100% recommend it, but just finding something that you love to do that takes like 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and no matter how busy you are, making time to do that thing, it kind of like brings you back to be a human a little bit.
Is this on? I would say I'm not gonna lie, like I'm still trying to find balance and still learning how to do that. But what I like to do, same thing with what he said, I like they're like non-negotiables and taking a break and putting my computer down, putting the screen down and just being active, going for a walk has really helped. And then also just preparing like before classes, like maybe once you get your syllabus, writing in all the quiz dates, all the tests, like stuff like that has kind of helped, and just checking that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm gonna be honest. I've been trying to figure that out since the day I was born. Nope, I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I would say probably like acceptance or like embracing your situation, like yeah, take care of yourself definitely, and like do the mental work of managing your stress or your anxiety or in whatever way that manifests for you, because like that's how you get through everything in life, right?
One thing that I tried to do, and I've definitely slipped away from at UT, is while I was at ACC, I tried to replace some of my like bad habits that I had in high school. So like prior to ACC with like better ones. So for like the full duration of time that I was at ACC, I deleted like social media, and I replaced like the time that I would spend like doom scrolling with like reading. And so I really got into reading, and I hated reading in high school, but I just realized that I didn't like reading to like complete an assignment. I liked reading what I like to read. And so I did that. I also fell in love with running and felt like that kept me grounded. Um, and then at UT, like that just went out the window. But yeah, I think like definitely find some kind of enrichment that keeps you grounded, and also like something that is motivating and hard. Like if you can do something that's hard and you can win at that thing, then like why can't you win at everything else too?
We've got time for one last question, and I see a hand over here. Oh, maybe we can do two last questions. We'll see if we can make the responses a little briefer.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and your openness to speak about your experiences. I have learned so much, and I feel like I've grown in this time. I wanted to ask something. London, you mentioned letting go of bad habits and how that propelled you in your journey. But I wanted to ask everyone about the sacrifices that you may have made, like good things that you had to let go, and how you decided what those things were. And you don't have to be super specific. Like, I don't want you to share anything that you don't want to. But I would love to know how you made that decision and what you had to let go to reach where you are today.
Um, I I really like I like social media like everybody else and doom scrolling and stuff like that, but I had to block everything. So now sometimes like my friends will send me like things and they'll be like, and I won't really know what they're talking about because I'm not on social media. I feel like I've kind of honestly just had to go ghost because calculus is extremely hard and there's no way that I'm gonna be able to do calculus and then go out with my friends and do what they want to do during the week. So I've had to make a lot of sacrifices like with friends and time. I probably have less friends now than when I started, but it kind of just shows you who's around for just like a fun time and who's like with you through like tough times.
For sure, I had to like as soon as I got accepted, I had to quit my job because like there is no way I could have gone to UT and work in a clinic. Like even part time, I couldn't do that. Um, because you like once you're on UT's campus, like you're kind of there all day. And I don't know if that's normal for y'all now with ACC. For me, like I went to class and I went home, but like UT, I just can't do that. There's always like office hours or like classes I have to like travel to. UT's campus is actually pretty big. So if y'all have a unicycle, y'all should ride it. And not to talk bad about the unicycle earlier, but if y'all have one, y'all should use it. But yeah, like I had to give up on working full time. Again, I'm supported by the GI Bill, which is nice, but it doesn't boost me into the next tax bracket either. Um, I've had to miss out a lot on Lillian, my daughter's stuff, like at her school events and stuff like that. Like it's just like, sorry, you're the same age as my professor's kids, but they're not going to be at their kids' stuff either. So, uh, but yeah, like I don't know. It's just you're kind of changing around a lot of stuff that you don't really think about until it's too late.
I think giving up like my life here at ACC actually was like sort of a bit of a loss. Because it's nice at Texas State, but like the sense of community here, like this is an extremely unique environment. It's really special. Um, I was involved in a lot of stuff. I was running the Student Veterans Organization. I had a job with ACC Grow here on campus, and you need to be a student to work those jobs. And so, like leaving all of that was actually really hard. So, um, I would say because of that loss that I felt, uh, definitely take advantage of your time here, because it really is very, very special.
Uh, just to like echo what these three have said, also, at ACC, when I first started, it was my first time back in like the school setting for about like almost 2 years. And so I had to really learn how to be a student again and learn how to adapt and learn how to study and learn how to take tests and all that. And so I completely devoted my time to that. But I'm not from Austin. I'm from the Valley, which is like 4.5 hours south to the southern border. And it was hard. All my siblings' family lives over there, and some of the sacrifices I had to make was like, I couldn't text them back every 10 minutes that they were texting me, or I couldn't go down as often as I could. And I mean, to this day, I still get crap from them saying that I'm not the best brother and stuff, but it hurts when they tell me that. I'm not gonna lie, but what keeps me grounded is that everything that I'm doing or everything I've done here at ACC was so I could get to where I'm gonna go in the fall, to be the first person in my family to be in the Ivy League, and like the second person to be in college. And so looking back and knowing how bad I felt for, leaving my family and not seeing them so often, and missing, my nephew growing up, and missing times when my mom got sick and I wasn't able to go down. It just, you know, reminds me that I'm doing this for a reason. And if I'm missing all these things, it's going to have to be worth it. And so it kind of just like pushes my drive a little bit more. And like, I know I'm going to have to do the sacrifice all over again in the fall, being in a whole completely different time zone and being states away from my family. But I think now they know, obviously, that it's a pretty big deal where I'm going, and they have a little bit more acceptance of my absence. But they know that it's for my future, and for our family.
Yeah, I came to ACC right after graduation, and I think that when I came to ACC and I knew the goal that I had in mind, I stopped hanging out around certain people in my life that I felt like weren't pushing me to be better, and I started spending more time with people at ACC who like were pushing me to be a better person. I spent a lot more time with my partner, who like to this day I think is like the single most important contributor to like me getting into UT and being successful there. So I think like the relationships you have with people are really important, and I had to cut out some ones that weren't beneficial. Um, and I think that's like something that moment is like, is this relationship benefiting me? Am I benefiting this person? Like sometimes it's a little bit grayer than like, oh, this isn't working. And so yeah, I think that's probably like the single thing beyond social media that like I gave up to allow me to transfer.
The question was already answered. It's okay. Okay, seems like that last question got answered within the conversation. So thank you again to Dr. Esparza for hosting, and to our panelists for being here and sharing so much great information. We are very happy to see y'all here. Let's give a round of applause, y'all.